Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us once again on Global Crossing Airlines channel. We're sitting here again with Ed, and we have some juicy news to dive into. But first off, Ed, how are you doing today?
Everything's great. Michael, thanks for having us again. I look forward to putting out some good information and engaging with our listeners. So,
Awesome, awesome. So, what you guys released is you guys become the newest U.S. air carrier. So, let's dive into some questions about that. First and foremost, what is an aircraft AOC, and what was needed to actually acquire this?
yeah, so it's a pretty stringent process, and there are two paths that you go down simultaneously. One is with the Department of Transportation. You have to prove to them that you've got the financing and the funding to do it, and that your investors are within regulations so that the percentage of U.S. ownership is at least 51%.
Hmm.
And at the same time, you start the process with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and you go through a five phase process, which can take anywhere from a year to, some carriers have taken as long as 3 or 5 years to get there. We were able to do it in about a year, a little over a year, so we feel very good about that. But it's a five-step process, and the FAA makes you go through a fairly rigorous process to review your manuals, review your operations. Eventually, you fly the airplane with the FAA on board, and we flew 105 hours of what we call proving flights with the FAA to satisfy all the requirements so that we could be issued what, in our case, the highest level of certification, which is US 121 flag carrier certification. So we're at the highest level. It took us a little over a year, which is faster than just about everyone else has done it. But it's a rigorous process, and it's done in conjunction with DOT. So lots of moving pieces, but we were able to pull everything together. So we feel pretty good about all of that.
Yeah, it does make sense when it comes to flight. There'd be really stringent things that you have to go through. And it's awesome to hear that you guys have been working on this for a while and now you finally made it. So going from there, what like specific rules and regulations govern a U.S. air carrier?
Sure. So there are a complete set of FARs, Federal Aviation Regulations, that govern how we operate. As part of the certification process, we submitted some 42 separate manuals, which cover each and every aspect of our operation. And all of those had to be reviewed and approved by the FAA. That's a process that's the longest piece of the whole process. And that took about 7 months for us to get through to the point where all of our procedures and processes were reviewed and validated by the FAA so that we could operate as a scheduled airline. Now, while we're going to initially be a charter carrier, we do have the authority to operate scheduled airline operations. So we have the same level of certification that United or Delta or Southwest has.
Nice, nice.
Under DOT requirements, we have to prove that we've got the funding not only to get through the certification, but then to have enough money to get through our first year of operation. We also have to show them the qualifications of the people on our board and in our management team. They do a background check on everyone to make sure that there are no bad actors in any of those groups.
Yeah.
And they also make sure that we have the sufficient knowledge to be able to operate an airline. And then the final thing that they look at in a broad category is our ownership percentage. So at least 51% has to be with U.S. investors, and the voting percentage, at least 75% of the voting shares need to be with U.S. citizens. And they stringently go through that process and look at all of our investors and our paperwork to ensure that we have met that requirement.
Yeah, it's interesting to get a behind the scenes look because not a lot of people know what really goes into getting this stuff through. But kind of going off of that, so now you've received the DOT's final approval for domestic flights. Like, what is involved in getting approval for international flights at this point?
So that's a very good question, and we're going through that process now. So under U.S. law, for an airline to start international operations, whether it be a charter or scheduled, it has to go to presidential review. So the president of the United States has to approve every airline that is going to operate internationally. Now, traditionally, what they have done, the president has done, is given it out to the agencies, Commerce, State Department, DOJ, and so forth, and ask for if there are any comments. And after 60 days, if there is no response or no comments, then it's automatically granted. The other way is to petition the White House directly and ask for intervention by the president to get him to say yes, him or her, to say yes, it's fine. There are no objections, and the government approves. So that's what we're going through now, is a direct communication with the White House to get the president to sign off on this, because we'd like to start international operations just about as soon as POTUS, the president, will sign off on it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people knew that this went all the way up to the top of the chain to get this kind of stuff through, but it does make sense because you are dealing with something that does deal with national security to some degree. So kind of going off of that, you guys are getting established. Where will you guys be setting up your first locations or bases?
So of course, our main hub or main base is MIA, Miami International Airport. That's where our headquarters is. That's where our maintenance base is located. And we have a lot of charter activity in and out of Miami. So it was a logical place for us to set up. We've also set up a regional base in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Atlantic City, great location for us in between Philadelphia, Newark, and the New York airports. Puts our airplanes up in the Northeast where we have a lot of charter activity. Puts us in a location that is very good in terms of the cost of operating from that airport is a fraction of what it would cost us to base our airplanes in just about any other airport in the Northeast. And we can also attract a great number of potential team members who have hospitality experience, obviously from the Atlantic City area. Plus, we got great support from the county, the Atlantic County, and also the state of New Jersey to help us establish our base there. So our first flight attendant class is now in training in Atlantic City, and they will graduate the end of this month. They'll be available for charters that we originate out of Atlantic City or out of the Northeast US, or frankly, anywhere where we have to ferry the airplane to pick up the client. So it could be Cleveland, Indianapolis, Chicago, even out west. We're now looking at where we will establish a base in the Western US, and we're looking at Las Vegas, Phoenix, Arizona, Salt Lake City, maybe Ontario, California. So we'll probably make that decision in the next 30 days or so, and then start to determine how we'll put some team members out there, some flight attendants, and eventually an airplane that will be assigned to our Western base, and at least one airplane assigned to Atlantic City full time, so that we diversify our assets. We distribute them throughout the United States, which maximizes the opportunity for us to get charters, because we don't have to move or ferry the aircraft as far if we're bidding on, say, a charter out of California, if we have an airplane based in Las Vegas, as opposed to having to ferry it from Miami, which is another 5 hours.
Yeah.
So we're moving rapidly to distribute our assets so that we maximize the opportunity to get charter contracts.
Wonderful. Well, as previously said, you guys have a great foundation and you got a solid strategy going forward. Ed, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight on this.
Michael, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.
Good. Thank you.